Good afternoon. My name is Ray Kuhl. I'm CEO of PBSI Technology Solutions, and I want to thank you for joining today's webinar, Email Security Practices. Today is the second of 4 cybersecurity education series webinars for clients and friends of Scroggins Greer. And I want to thank everyone at Scroggins Greer who has participated in envisioning the need for this information, concerned and understanding that clients need to protect information, and who've been actively involved in planning. I am honored, and we're honored as a firm, to partner with Scroggins Greer in providing this content. I have more respect for Scroggins Greer than I can speak after, I can say, decades of experience. So thank you for joining. So we're going to move quickly, and I will apologize in advance for speaking quickly. There's content that I don't want to miss, but I will say you might want to avoid doing something else while I'm speaking, because I will move from screen to screen quickly. And today, this topic is really important. The content is really important. So our goal in this entire series is to inform and educate, to improve knowledge about electronic security, and to provide practical, useful information about what we need to change and how to do so. So first, earlier this week, we overviewed a broad range of issues involved in securing information. Today, specifically, we're going to dive into email security, something that's important and in most of our faces every day. Next week, we'll talk about file encryption, why it's important, how to do it, and cloud security. And then really important topic with great information next Thursday, password management, and how to solve the problem we all face in dealing with password control, and specifically with public Wi-Fi as well. So diving in, today's topic, email security. Quickly, we're going to talk about why do we need protection. That's probably clear to most everybody already. You know you're participating in this webinar because you understand it's important. And we'll talk about fundamentals. There are some really specific things that we continue to learn actively. I'm an active learner as an organization. We've gathered a lot of really important fundamentals of how to behave securely, how to spot dangerous emails. I'll go through several examples. We'll look at one solution that is fairly new and seems to work really well to help mitigate situations where we may inadvertently click. And then we'll summarize at conclusion. So we will be finished in a half hour. So many of you know PBSI. Thank you for long standing relationships with many of you. For many of you, this is likely your first exposure to PBSI. So we are a technology services provider for hundreds of organizations, clients in the tri-state, Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. And I'm very blessed as CEO of PBSI to know that we have lots and lots of staff. Most of our staff has been with us for 10 years or more, and experience and knowledge help clients, which is really important. So our job is overall, we're an IT security company and an IT company, and we do other IT-related things, phone systems and so forth. But it's from the experience that we gain in providing security service that we learn, and from that I'll speak from today. So why do we need protection? The internet is dangerous. I think we all understand that. It's important to understand PCs are being infected with malware, and this is something that's been around for a long time, but we see this really increasing, where key logging software is now resident on its estimated millions of PCs, where the user is not notified. Some keystroke was made a month ago, a week ago, a year ago, and since that time, malware has been active. And one of the things malware does is key logging. That records keystrokes, and it captures, most importantly, logins and passwords. Once the keylogger is in place, you have a significant risk that wherever you've been is potentially compromised. So the reason that I'm going to focus on just a little bit, because today's topic is email, and I want to really make clear why it's important that we pay attention to email and how we deal with our passwords. So there are now worldwide 3.1 billion email addresses that are available for sale on the dark web, and they're available for sale because they're connected with something else: a name, a social security number, a password, a date of birth. There are varying combinations of data that are available, but of those 3.1, 1.2 billion of them have exposed, cracked passwords, which means likely every one of those 1.2 billion people didn't make mistakes. They stored their login and password with a site that was then hacked. And that happens just all the time. We see, every one of us can't avoid seeing the publicity in our business, in the security business. It's more than daily where we see yet another hack. And just last week, for those in healthcare, healthcare.gov, a site that we presume, okay, the government, certainly they're going to be much better than the average bear at protecting information. Well, the site was hacked, and they came clean quickly, but still, it makes all of us understand that it's important. How could that happen? So we're going to talk about that today. And I'm going to do real quickly here a demonstration of an exposed password check. So this is a window that we have at PBSI into the dark web. So none of us can get into the dark web. We pay at PBSI for a service to allow us to do this. And what it allows me to do is to search for compromised credentials. We can do this, and we can do this for any of you if you wish. I'm going to use pbsinet.com. That's our domain. And I'm going to search and find all of the exposed passwords that are available for sale. And these are shown in date of publication sequence. So in August of this year, the most recent, then in March. And in total, PBSI, the security company you know and trust, has, a whole bunch of email addresses that have been exposed. So the things that we're looking for are the column for password. Yes, these were exposed passwords in the clear. And here's one where it wasn't exposed, but it was cracked. So on this site, here are passwords where the password was encrypted, but the publisher was able to crack it and now is selling the email address with the password. Why is that important? If you've used the same password multiple places and you're not aware whether it's been compromised, you may well still be publishing using email and logins and passwords that have long been cracked. So those email addresses that you just saw that are available for sale may have been published there years ago. In fact, many of the people on that list have not been with PBSI for many, many years, yet their email address and password is still out there. So it's just important to understand that if you're one of 1.2 billion people, it's not unlikely at all that your own favorite email address and password exist out there for sale. So how can you then, if you know that will ratchet up the ability for somebody to attack your email, how can you avoid making mistakes? So this screen is really important. There's a handout related to this next couple of screens that each of you will receive. And I want to outline what we see as the absolute 4 principles of email evaluation. First of all is to understand the difference between solicited and unsolicited email. So you may receive an unsolicited email from Ray at PBSI. If you didn't ask me to send you an email, it's unsolicited. So you can receive lots of unsolicited emails from people you know and trust. The question is it really them? Is it really coming from Ray at PBSI, or is this email purporting to be from Ray at PBSI? So first of all, if you don't know that the email is coming, you haven't asked for it, then you need to look at that email in a different way. So maybe from somebody you know. So the question is there anything unusual about this email? Immediately, our eyes need to be open and our questions need to be asked, especially, I'll show you a short demonstration of this. There are a couple of these that I'll show you examples. Brief emails from known persons. I just got one today. Somebody I used to play golf with. I'm on his contact list, and I got an email where it was from his name, but the address was not his address. If I paid attention to that, and there's a short list of additional recipients, and it was a very brief with a link. Click this link. I thought you'd be interested in this. So it's very common practice. So even if it's somebody you know, caution. So the basic idea of all of this is heads up. So what do we look for? Stop. If anything seems amiss, ask yourself, do I need to click this now, or do I need to click it at all? I delete all kinds of emails from friends who I know and trust. I really have no idea and no expectation that most of the things they send me because they think they're funny or whatever are bad, but I just don't need to click it. And I've learned too much to believe that they are smart and experienced enough to pass on only links that are safe. Okay, so we evaluate the email address. Probably you know to hover your mouse over the email address and it will show the actual address being used. The time of day it was sent, recipient list, brief content. If it's out of character, why would this person send this particular email to me? Misspellings, grammar mistakes, unusual phrasing, unusual colors, formatting, font variations. A lot of hacking takes place from the US to the US, but if you were in yesterday's webinar, you saw, Tuesdays, you saw that attacks are coming from all kinds of foreign countries, Russia and China certainly, but lots of others as well, and emails from non-native English speakers can be frequently a big heads up. Okay, another thing that's really important, don't get your news from your email. So I'll show you an example or two of emails that I've received, and I remember thinking on the day that the United Airlines passenger was thrown off the airplane. It's been, I don't know, a year or two ago now, and I saw the email with the CEO smiling on the email screen, and the headline was, CEO was fired. And I remember thinking, really, that's, wow. Well, it never happened. I didn't click on the email, but it's the most interesting things are the ones you're going to get emails about, and current events are really, really exploited immediately or in advance. So beware of any emails related to current events, product releases, Olympics, disasters, holiday messages around Thanksgiving or Black Friday or whatever it is. The spam associated with that event will be higher than normal. Celebrity newses, interesting product releases, heads up when you see anything that looks like it's really, really interesting. Instead, go to your news source. So go to that vendor's website. Do not click the link on the email. Okay, social media. Most people have learned popular sites are really just loaded with phishing scams. Facebook certainly, but virtually every social media site is, you think that things on that site are there because your friends trusted them. Well, one, is your friend security aware enough to be putting only trustworthy things on their page? And also there are ads and things where Facebook may vet the vendor, but they really don't vet the content. And it's just very, very frequent that there are things available in social media which somebody's thought long and hard how to put something there that you'd want to click. Anything that seems too good to be true in an email, you won $50, Amazon gift card, whatever it is, just stay away. That's how the basic idea of social media works. Social engineering, pardon me. Social engineering is the term associated with scammers who are trying to think, how can we get inside the mindset of an email recipient to seem trustworthy, to seem interesting? They're engineering social awareness for their benefit. Okay, another thing that's really important, years ago, our security administrator at PBSI told me to really be careful with unsubscribe. Well, not too long ago, I had an experience where unsubscribe was blocked, and I thought it was a legitimate unsubscribe. But here's what happens. You can unsubscribe if it's from Macy's or somebody you trust and you know it's really from them, fine, unsubscribe if you don't want to be on that list. But unless you're really certain, don't unsubscribe. It is frequently a way that a scammer will confirm that you have an email address and confirm some level of interest you have in something, and it will ratchet up your attack profile. Instead, I'll quickly demonstrate this. If you're using Outlook, you can right-click and say junk and block sender. So block sender achieves the same thing from your purposes, but it does not go back and communicate with the bad guys that you're there and that you don't want to hear from them. So unsubscribe is a tactic used all the time by scammers. So antenna up, scammers are very intentional, and be very cautious. So unsolicited email, all the time antenna up, don't get news, don't use unsubscribe unless you're certain of the quality of the vendor. Then Other things, caution steps. What process do we go through in evaluating an email? Well, the first thing is hovering over not only just the email address, but any links. So if you hover over a link, don't click on it, but you can see the full message underneath that link, and some of them are very, very long. And if you took the unfortunate bad step of clicking on it, you'd see that the link actually points someplace that's frequently different than what the link says it's pointing to. Check spellings, unexpected content. We're talking about in a link, added extensions like there is no site or address called amex.us.com or ups.pickup. I saw one earlier that we have an example of that was from Kroger.org. I'm pretty sure there is no Kroger.org, but you can see that scammers are thinking, well, how can we seem as close as possible? So it's really important, never respond if asked to click a link for confirmation or account reset or security alert. If there is a requirement for a confirmation or reset, that kind of thing, you can go directly to the vendor's site, log in with your name and address, or name and password, don't click on the link. Even if they know something about you, remember, our information is available out there, it's for sale, and they may have gotten our entire credit card number associated with our name. Just because they know that doesn't mean that they're safe. If you think a request may be legitimate, instead of clicking on it, go to the vendor site, log in directly, and don't copy and paste the link, or you've just achieved the same thing as if you had clicked on it. So think twice, and if uncertain, forward the email to a trusted IT person or your IT supplier. Anybody who uses PBSI for support, you can forward an email to us anytime and say, is this okay? And we will take that as a priority and reply back that it's okay or not. There are all kinds of really, really clever ruses, and it's better safe than sorry. Okay, some common spoofs. Predictably, around certain times of year, you could expect this, but tax season is coming. Who knows what they'll come up with this year, but confirm your IRS account now before somebody else gets to it first. Well, don't respond to that. You need to reset your IRS PIN number. There's a problem with your W-2. They're just predictable things that have been used over and over. Most of the major vendors, Apple, Microsoft, Gmail, your account needs renewal reset. Well, it might, but don't click on the email. Resume attached, Word attachments, all kinds of attachments. It doesn't just have to be a Word document, are so frequently laden with ransomware. So texting is increasingly something that scammers are using. You receive a text alert that Google or Apple or whoever has detected unusual activity. Oh, really? Reset my password, click this link in the text. Don't do it. Any concerns that you've made a mistake, I just clicked on that, I don't think I should have done that, change the password associated with that account immediately so that if they have gathered the information, they need both the login and password in order to succeed. So hopefully that's a helpful step, and the things that I just described are all included in the handout that each of you will receive. So now I'm going to go through some email examples, and I'll do this quickly. Some of these are old, some of these are new. So the fraud notice here on the screen is a picture that I included. This email didn't come with the description fraud attached, but many of us are accustomed to receiving electronic faxes. So here's a fax messenger email that came in. If that had been clicked on, you would have been presented with this Bitcoin screen. You've just been attacked by ransomware. Now you're saying this is telling me that my data has been encrypted. It may have been stolen. I can pay this amount of money and release my data or get it back. And you've already gone to a place you don't want to go. And by the way, don't pay the ransomware. Statistics, sometimes that can be successful, but if you are paying attention earlier this week, the best prevention is backup that is encrypted, so that if that happens, you do not have a disaster on your hands if you don't pay the ransomware. Okay, other alerts. Security or alert emails. The bad guys are smart enough to know that we like to know how to become more secure. So here's an email that says, your incorrect password limit was reached. What, is somebody trying to log into my account and doing it too frequently, and it's locking the account? Is it me? No, do not click that. Here's one that came in, if you remember, early this year. There was a big to-do about Spectre and Meltdown and the hardware security issue that Intel had built into processors that were in virtually all PCs for a number of years. Well, that was released end of December, 1st of January, and here's an email on January 6th that says, you may have read about this vulnerability. Click here for information, click here to, this is a scam, this is bad. So these things are real time. So very typical, still very convincing shipping confirmation. This is not from FedEx and this is not from UPS. They're both scam emails. So fake news. So here is an email that breaking news, the person who drove into the crowd in Charlottesville was acquitted today. No, that didn't actually happen, but it was reported in this email. Click here to watch footage. Here's the one that I referred to earlier, where it really looked like a legitimate Fox News breaking story in my email, but this would have resulted in bad things had it been clicked. So don't get your news from your email. Okay, banking or financial emails. Not all banks and credit card companies follow this, but most do. So this is a good email that I received from Huntington, where it says I have a statement available, but there's no link here. They're aware enough that they tell me I need to go log in. That's good. Here's one where this was a bad email. It wasn't really from Citibank. It says click here. And generally speaking, the financial institutions have learned not to do that because they're so frequently abused. Okay, another frequent thing is that scammers feign trusted sources. So everybody trusts Goodwill, right? After an event someplace, click here to donate $20, click here to donate $100. Well, this was not from Goodwill, it was a bad email. Here's one taking advantage of a guess at where I might have a likely account. I get this email from Kroger, from marketing@kroger.org, and it looks like, they're offering, this looks interesting. It wasn't from Kroger. So I'm not trying to frighten, but I am trying to inform that we just have to be very careful. It is not the same world it used to be. Emails requesting clicks, confirmation emails, review this document. So DocuSign and Adobe Sign, I use Adobe Sign. It's not an unusual thing at all. Just make sure that if you're getting a request like this, that it's not an unsolicited email, it's one you're expecting. And then you can always send an email to the person who sent it to you and ask, did you send me a document to sign? I just want to be sure before I click that link. Credit score, who's interested to know their credit score that's been updated? This was a bad link. It wasn't from Credit Karma. It would have implemented a keylogger on that PC. Okay, so end of short examples. I'm now going to do a very short demonstration of a couple live things that are related to Office 365. So we do sell and support Office 365, but that is not my goal today. My goal today is to identify a couple of things that have been recently released as add-ons to Office 365 that I think are really, really good, mostly until recently, until these products were available. Our only protection against some of these bad links were to train all staff to make sure that nobody makes a mistake, and that's really hard to do. So one thing I'm going to demonstrate is a feature in Office 365, which is a subscription product. You pay $2 a month extra for this feature called Advanced Threat Protection. And what it does, if you click on a link or an attachment, it first sends it out on the internet before it ever comes into our organization, into our firewall. It never enters our building. These links and attachments are tested or detonated in a safe place in a sandbox out there on the internet. And if they're bad, we receive a message. If they're good, we receive exactly what we tried to accomplish. So here's how it works with a link. So our security administrator sent this to me, and he said, here, this is a good way to test this. So here's a bad link. Yeah, I'm going to click it. it went through Office 365 safe links. You always see this at the beginning of the message, and it says this website's classified. And we have at PBSI this set that I can't click on this. It's possible to set this that you're warned, but you can click on it if you want to. In this case, we don't even permit that. Okay, so another thing that I got earlier today, so I thought, well, I'll include this. And it came from, I overwrote the name to say undisclosed name, but this was a real person's name who I know, and same thing here, the real person's name at the bottom. The email list is a short list, other people who I know that this person knows, and the contact is something short. I'm on top of the world because click, nope, I'm not gonna click. It's just an example, and probably most all of you have seen examples like that. So one other thing, I'm gonna demonstrate how to encrypt an email with Office 365, and we'll dig into this in more detail next webinar. But if I send a new email to myself or anybody else, and I have some text and whatever, I might include my payroll list, whatever I want to include, I'm going to choose the option to limit permissions, and the default is unrestricted, but do not forward. Now that encrypts this email, and when I send it, the recipient, if I send it to myself, actually it doesn't, the recipient, I could have sent it to my home email address and gone out. That recipient will get a message that says you have an email from Ray Cool. Click here if you have an account you're already set up with a password, or click here for a one-time password. And the recipient would be, so I didn't get that because I'm inside of our own network, but I would have been prompted, and a password email would have been sent to me, copy and paste, and I can open that email. So it's a efficient process. Office 365 is not the only product out there that allows email encryption, but if you're in healthcare or if you send any financial information, please pay attention to this. Don't send your tax return information to Scroggs & Greer by email. Fax it. Fax is perfectly safe. It's analog. Or use Scroggs & Greer's portal, which is, sorry, I forget the name right now, ShareFile. And ShareFile is put there for your benefit so that you can submit documents without concern because they're encrypted in transit and they're encrypted at rest. Okay, so in summary, we are almost finished with content. I just want to summarize the basic security principles. Pay attention to unsolicited email in a different way. Antenna up always. Don't get news from email. Careful with unsubscribe and web links. And take the right caution steps before you decide to click. So hopefully this is, I'm certain that not all of this is new information to probably anyone, but hopefully there's something of value for everybody. So summarizing, on the first webinar, we talked about the basics of security, having our PCs protected by antivirus and malware, desktop patch management, always updated, paying attention to not downloading software that's not certainly known and previously approved, and always having a backup. Training our staff about email security, which is what we just talked about. On next Tuesday, we'll go through a workshop on email and document encryption. What to encrypt, why would you encrypt it, how to encrypt it, what's the difference between encrypting it on your PC or on your network and encrypting it when you're emailing it. And then probably the most single important content that we'll cover is passwords. If you haven't registered for this webinar, I'd encourage you to do so. All of us have a problem with passwords. And so there's some really practical information about what to do about passwords, how to manage them in a way that's secure. And then once we've set up these protections, to know that our PCs are safe by having online monitoring in place is a really, really important thing. So thank you for your attendance. I hope this has been useful. And once again, I want to thank our friends and colleagues at Scroggs & Greer for making this information available out of concern for security of all clients. This is an important thing for all of us. So I want to once again thank you for your attendance.